Dictionary. Heck of an idea. Do you own one? I recommend you get a dictionary. That's not an online thing. Something with paper. You can tell I've had this one for so many years. And this paper dictionary allows you to see the roots of words. You begin to see how words are all linked together. Look at that. Just in time. And justice, justify, justness, juror, juristic. Justify justice of the peace. There you go. I would suggest to you that we are married to this dictionary, and it's a heck of a good idea. Webster, it is said, was a very spiritual man who realized that for the first time on earth we might have peace and we might have a form of justice in our lives if we all got on the same page. In fact, you might want to consider that getting on the same page may actually have its origin in the dictionary. Justice, I was watching a court appearance. I've been watching, maybe you have seen it lately, a very high court appearance carried on at the highest halls of governance in the United States. It struck me that this was the halls of justice, and yet I was seeing some very raunchy behavior, insulting people, insulting the court, you have to understand, if you or I go into a courtroom of any kind, and of course the proof is there in this televised spectacle, any of the people who were sitting as witness, they are expected to conduct themselves in a manner absolutely in keeping with the halls of justice. That is to say, they're in a courtroom, they are court witnesses, they must behave in court behavior. And yet I was watching this courtroom behavior and I was seeing somebody else or some other form of activity running the show from time to time. And when I saw this, what I realized was that these people were not on the same page about what is justice. And of course that's what the case was about. People were not on the same page. If I look at this, there are these various meanings. I think the first one is a moral judgment, and the second one is moral righteousness, upholding what is right and fair. I can tell you whether it's your view of morals or your view of right and fair, if you have people in a courtroom that are compelled to be there by law, and they must be there honestly and on their best behavior, then for anyone in that courtroom to not be on their best behavior and to not behave fairly, that's out of order. And in a court of law, any of those witnesses would have been compelled to hold their tongue or go to jail. It's called contempt of court. They would have been sent to jail. I will be sent to jail if on any court appearance I ever behave as those people were behaving. And what it brings to my mind is that was not, in fact, a legal hearing. You may say it was in keeping with the law and it's part of the most important aspects of our legal system, but that was not a legal hearing. That was a television event. The television event that I was watching was basically refereed by whatever television station was carrying the television event. So that the people who have no background in law and the people who have they're not answerable to the law for their comments. Those people were commenting on what happened in that courtroom. They were the hosts of what happens in that courtroom, those people who represent television stations. And those television hosts then were the people to decide whether or not what was happening was moral or whether it was fair. I do want to point out to you, though, that if it were a real, actual operational court of law, then there would have been the administration of law. And see, that's why people say, I'll take you to court and so forth, because you may or may not obey the law out here in the world as a free person. exercising your rights of expression. You may or may not obey the law in that way, but when you're in a courtroom, you are there under the rules of jurisprudence. You are in a courtroom for the express purpose of law. And any purpose expressed outside of that law is, well, it's what criminals do every day, don't they? A criminal always has, believe me, I know about fitting people up and charging people wrong, and I believe in getting those people out of jail that are put in jail wrong. But I know that we are right now asking witnesses to come into a courtroom so that certain people can badger those witnesses, intimidate those witnesses, cause those witnesses to be fearful for their careers, and cause those witnesses actually to be fearful about how they answer the next question. Fortunately, we have career service people in our administration of governance that are not party-oriented, that are actually there just doing their jobs, and they're so proud of their human ability to do their jobs that they stood apart from the American melee called televised justice, and behaved themselves appropriately and professionally. Unfortunately, there were people in that courtroom who abused them and tried to change their testimony. Unfortunately, there were people in that courtroom who abused justice itself. I want you to know that I watch international news, and internationally, right now, when they ask a person on the international level of law what is going on, they're saying, well, this one party is actually now openly fighting the direction of democracy. Democracy has a two-party system so that nobody gets out of balance. And when one of those parties begins to actually no longer mind the law and just press what it wants, then democracy is gone. And for that party then to stand up and say, we're going to do what we want, you people are not actually satisfying us, and because you don't satisfy us, we're not going to behave the law. This is why you die. This is why you are going extinct as a people on the face of the planet Earth. Make no mistake, this so-called party is an illegal cartel. A cartel is a price fixer, and they are price fixing justice. You have to be on our side or there is no justice. You have to be favored by our television stations because our party members own the TV stations. And those party members who own the TV stations and the people who work for them and us, we all disagree with the American Congress, we all disagree with the American Constitution, and we will pell-mell take it apart piece by piece. This is why you have illegal wars going on and on. This is why you have pollution in all your waterways. And to justify what I just said, to justify what I just said, just draw a line down the middle of a piece of paper and start adding who was in charge of making sure that it was okay to destroy the environment, who was in charge of making sure it was okay to attack another country, who was in charge of making sure it was okay to drill oil underwater, who was in charge of, and on and on and on. Exceptions do not disprove the rule. I'm not looking for, can you find somebody who does not belong to some specific group who also agreed to do foolish behavior? I'm just asking you, is there any group of any kind in your country right now whose group behavior says, I don't care about your justice system, I want things my way, and I'm willing to stack the system with money, I'm willing to stack the system with my news stations and my reporters, I'm willing to stack the system any way I can to tilt it in my favor. And that includes corporations saying, I must make money before I help people. I truly wonder whether these are human beings. How can you work so continuously for the death of humanity and be a human being? You might want to begin a simple test to qualify whether or not you actually have humans in so-called political offices. Especially when they tell you on national television that the legal process doesn't satisfy them and the protection of the environment doesn't satisfy them and the rules governing the protection of that environment on a global level do not satisfy them and they don't like it. When you have a group, any group at all, that is absolutely poised against human life on more than one basis on a continuous process, it's maybe time to ask yourself whether you're actually dealing with humanity. Certainly, humanity can read, and humanity can figure out, or can discern, what is the meaning of justice. And certainly a humanity can discern whether its meaning for justice will allow for the continuance of life on the planet Earth, or whether it will actually just put money in the pockets of people who have desire to control.